All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're peeling back the layers on one of Kenya's most notorious religious families. We're talking about an entire dynasty built on faith, miracles, and some absolutely shocking allegations of fraud. This quote from our source material, it really says it all. This wasn't just your standard Sunday collection plate we're talking about. This was an operation on a whole different level. So, how on earth did it all start? Well, at the very center of this web, you've got the matriarch, prophetess Lucy Dukta, and right behind her were her two sons, who followed her right into the family business, Pastor Victor Kanari and Apostle Jackson Wawero. And you got to understand, this wasn't just a ministry, it was a business, through and through.
Lucy Dukta's story, it starts out like something you'd really root for. I mean, super humble beginnings. She got married in 1980, and for a while she even worked as a house help just to make ends meet when her husband was out of work. But she was ambitious. From these tiny prayer meetings in her house, she managed to build this huge church empire in Nairobi. It's a total rags to riches story, but with a really dark twist.
Yeah, because simmering just below the surface of all that faith and prosperity preaching, something truly shocking was going on. And this is where the story takes a turn, from just fraud to something deadly. This is what brought it all crashing down. Okay, so here's the scam, and it's a rough one. Around 2004, Dukta started claiming she could straight up cure HIV/AIDS through prayer. And look, this wasn't just offering a little spiritual comfort. No, she was telling desperate, vulnerable people to stop taking their actual medicine. The consequences were, as you can imagine, just devastating. And these so-called miracles, they cost a fortune. First, you had to pay 1,000 shillings just to register. Then the prayers themselves could set you back up to 400,000 shillings. But the real cost, the true cost, wasn't money. It was people's lives. Believing they were cured, they stopped their life-saving medication. I mean, one woman was convinced to give away her entire car for one of these miracles. Just look at that number for a second. 700,000 shillings. That is a staggering amount of money. And that is exactly what one secretary from Machakos paid after she saw Dukta on TV and believed. She poured all her hope and a massive sum of money into this promise. And this quote, man, it just captures the absolute heartbreak of it all. Can you imagine paying all that money, you go back to your doctor, you're so sure you're filled with hope, and then it all just comes crashing down. The test is still positive. The miracle was a lie. Well, you can only get away with something like that for so long. As more and more of these stories came out, the authorities finally had to step in. So, in 2006, Lucy Dukta was arrested. 2 years later, she's convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison. End of story, right? Not even close. The family business was just getting ready for its next chapter. So, with their mom in jail, you'd think that's a wrap. But her sons Pastor Victor Kanari and Apostle Jackson Wawero, they didn't miss a beat. They didn't just pick up where she left off. Oh no. They took the family business and gave it a 21st century upgrade, each with his own unique deceptive twist. And it's pretty wild to see how they went in two totally different directions. On one hand, you had Pastor Kanari, who was all about the showmanship. His thing was the 310 seat of faith with these big, dramatic, visual miracles. Then you had his brother, Apostle Wawero, whose approach was much more, corporate. He set up the 777 offering, complete with a call center designed to just rake in the cash. So you're probably wondering, how did Kanari pull off this visual proof? What was his secret? Well, it wasn't divine intervention. It was high school chemistry. Seriously. He was using potassium permanganate, a chemical that turns water a deep blood red color pretty much instantly. He passed this off as demonic blood being cast out of somebody's body, an absolutely shocking sight for anyone who didn't know better. Meanwhile, his brother Jackson Wawero was running a full-blown money-making machine. How much are we talking? Get this. On a good day, his call center could pull in as much as 200,000 shillings, and his employees were even getting commissions for hitting their targets. People were manipulated into sending in their children's school fees, all for blessings that, of course, never happened. So after all the exposés, the arrests, and the public backlash, you have to ask, where are they now? What happened to this family? Let's fast forward to today and find out. Let's start with the matriarch, prophetess Dukta. For the most part, she keeps a really low profile these days, but she did just celebrate her 59th birthday. in grand style, with famous musicians and everything. So it's safe to say she's still living pretty comfortably. Now her son, Victor Canary, his story has taken a fascinating turn. He's basically traded the pulpit for a smartphone. He has completely reinvented himself as a TikTok personality. Yeah, you heard me right. He's known for his wild antics and live-streamed prayers, which, depending on who you ask, are either hilarious or just plain exhausting. And what about the other brother, Jackson Mweru, the call center guy? After he got exposed, he went in the complete opposite direction of his brother. He retreated from the spotlight, reportedly changed his name to Jackson Mongi, and now operates way under the radar, probably just hoping everyone will forget. So there you have it, the whole unbelievable saga. It's a story that spans generations, from homemade ministries in a living room to high-tech call centers and TikTok antics. It really just leaves us with one final crucial question to think about. When you look back at this whole dynasty of deception, which fraud do you think was the worst? Which one really takes the crown? Was it the matriarch's life-threatening HIV scam, her son's theatrical chemical miracles, or the other brother's cold, systematic call center collections? Definitely something to think about.